What is up, folks? Justin Khanna here. You know why you're all here. Let's get started, shall we? Quickie heads up though, this video is an entire roundup of every single knife in the Bonanza. If you'd like a chance to win any of those knives individually, check the timecode stamps in the description, and that's where the standalone videos will be. There you can learn how to enter. Also, I did a video very similar to this one that's linked up right here, where you can learn a little bit about how I evaluate knives. The TLDR of that is, this is how I look at it. How does the knife look on paper? What are all the stats so you can read about it online? And then how does it feel to use? And that's kind of that very human element. Okay, here we go. I wanted to make this one the first knife in the series because these makers actually got the ball rolling on this entire 2.0 series. So this is from the Sabol brothers. Andy specifically was kind enough to send this knife out, as well as their Petty. They have another one that's part of this different kind of handle material, but more on this one later. And these both got sent out months ago. Shout out to everyone on Patreon who's going to be eligible to win this one. So on paper here, we've got an 8-inch chef knife with a super tall profile. Contrast that with a knife I've covered on the channel before, the Bunka, and you can see how tall this actually is. They're almost the same height. The steel on this one is a Bowler N690, which Andy told me was from a small batch of softer blades that they made, and it's been heat treated to be 58 Rockwell hardness for easier sharpening. They've got a plethora of other steels that they use. Apparently 90% of their knives are over 60 Rockwell hardness rating, so this is on the softer end, but he mentioned to me that they will go all the way up to an S390 PMHSS that goes all the way up to 68 or 69 Rockwell hardness, which is just stupid hard. For anyone that's new to knives, this doesn't necessarily mean higher quality knives. It might also be a detriment because they can be more brittle and prone to chipping. Handle on this is a brown ebony. Ferrule here is made from Juma, and the spacers are made from Juma Dragon in this beautiful blue color, and then AISI 304 stainless steel. Maybe you noticed it when I flashed it earlier on the Petty. The saya for this is also super unique. This is just a custom fit wooden saya with a wooden pin, but they use this crazy arts and craft technique called decoupage to make every single one of these different. And it honestly makes for one of the most unique sayas I've ever seen. Talking about use on this knife, if I had to describe this knife in one word, it's smooth. There's literally one edge on this knife, and it's going to be the one that's in contact with the board. The bolster is smooth. The heel of the handle is smooth. This is tapered down. The spine is beveled down as well, which I personally love. There's a seamless joining of the blade to the handle. The cutting experience is fantastic with that super tall profile and a really comfortable length for my hands as well. I just personally really feel comfortable doing a ton of chopping prep with this. If you're a kind of chop and scoop kind of prepper, this is going to be a dream for you to use. Plus that beveled spine just feels... Now, you might have heard me mention that this is one of their softer blades, and I think I can attest to that. If you're going to use this at home only, putting a nice edge on this is going to last you absolutely for weeks. On the professional side, if this is going to be your workhorse, I think you would be best keeping a honing rod close nearby, just to periodically kind of keep that edge in shape and then resharpen it once per week. Because they are so small batch, they're pretty elusive about the price. Also because a lot of their prices depend on the materials that they're using. So if you're interested in winning this one, it's valued at this price that I have on the screen right now. I think because they are so small and custom on each piece, you're better off just following them on Facebook or any of the links that I have down low in the description to learn more. Moving right along, the next knife in the series here is the Maru Nagomi Santoku. So on paper, this knife actually lands in a really great price point for a lot of you. At $155 retail through their site, this is a great option, at least in my opinion, for the materials used. It's got that molybdenum blend in the steel. There's a wooden handle. There's no plastic anywhere, and this really sleek profile and attention to detail makes it so that each piece is finished one by one, at least from what they say. It doesn't exactly scream custom in its own right, but I think the wood grain from each knife might change, so that will give you a little bit of variation, making you feel like this is your own. However, with that price point comes a lot of trade-offs. It is a 50-50 blade ratio on the bevel to help support the fact that this is a very, very thin knife. It's not the hardest steel in the world either, so you got to be conscious of that. And at this length of 180 millimeters, if you've got larger hands or just enjoy wielding a larger knife during your prep, this might not fit your needs. Also keep in mind that this being a Santoku style blade, this might be not as multi-purpose for professionals as the marketing leads on. I think for someone that cooks at home quite a bit, cutting raw chicken breast, slicing bell peppers, rough chopping on the occasional bunch of parsley, that definitely covers a lot of your bases. But if you're working in a professional kitchen, depending on what station you're working on and what your prep list looks like, this might not be the best fit. Now, my personal experience using this was decent. I didn't find that much comfort in the taper that happens from the handle going into the attachment to the blade, even though the, quote, smooth grip without a bump is the result of our craftsman's strenuous effort and handiwork. We would like you to feel comfortable with our knife in your hand, end quote. I do think that this is missing some element of bolster or center weight because it is very handle heavy. Where I found myself reaching for this the most was with smaller vegetable projects or tasks that required a lot of chopping. Rock chopping herbs or fruit, needing to hache things on smaller cutting boards in particular if your kitchen is tight, cutting shallots or radishes, or even getting slices with this on pick your vegetable is super easy because it has that even bevel and it's not gonna kind of sway one way or another. Also, because it's so short, you can see it side by side with my hand here, it's pretty much the same height. You don't have to worry about that scoop effect where you scoop up too much food and it falls off of the knife. If you're anti-bench scraper and love scooping ingredients up with your Santoku knife, this is a great option. And especially if you're the kind of person that wants the fusion knife kind of between a Nakiri and a chef knife, the Santoku profile actually works great for that and gives you the potential to do some more delicate tip work that a Nakiri can't do. Of course, during my testing for this video series, I left all my knives lined up on my workbench, and I would kind of mentally keep track of how likely I was to reach for certain knives depending on the task at hand. And for cooking at home, I would constantly reach for this one. If I had to cleanly articulate what it was, it's profiled and hard enough, and especially after I sharpened it, to not make me feel like I'm using one of my mom's knives, if that makes sense, but it doesn't feel like I'm breaking out the big guns to just cut a single head of bok choy to stir fry for dinner. I feel like I've already answered the who is this for and should you buy it on this one. Garbage station wanting to get some nicer steel in their bag. Again, nice blend on this one. The home cook who wants to feel a little bit more pro or wants to go a little bit more minimal on their knife block. I think this can cover a lot of bases, but if you do a lot of butchering or cooked protein carving or even doing mass amounts of prep, I think the length and blade profile of this would be a little bit frustrating in a commercial environment. So absolutely weigh that for yourself. Also, because of the shape and length of this, I think this can be a great choice for someone working to improve your whetstone sharpening. It's a pretty even playing field. There's not too much of a swoop in the blade, so if you're working on getting your angles nice, this is a good option. I realize including a shorter knife in particular and also having it be kind of a Santoku style profile doesn't fit this chef knife Bonanza, but it was part of one of the knives that a company sent out to me, and I think sometimes, especially as a professional, you get beat into this idea of like chef knife, chef knife, chef knife, when in reality, if you can become a rock star with using this and get through your prep list faster because this works better with how you work, I would hate to not recommend this because I feel like some of you will find a lot of joy in using knives like this. Actually, now that I talk about it like that, I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Are you someone who used to use chef knives and now has transitioned into like Santoku or Nakiri style knives? Let me know the benefits and why you've switched. Okay, so we absolutely have to talk about these guys. This has been a brand that's been making some massive waves lately. This is Cangshan. And if this logo looks familiar, yes, I've covered their sheaths on the channel before. They look like this. They're fantastic because they have different heights as well as different lengths, so you don't have to worry about having a custom fitted saya. You can effectively buy a set of these, and then same way to how I have mine set up, I keep them on a magnetic block in there out of the saya, and then when it's time to take one, I just pick what saya fits, and then I clip it in, and then I'm on my way. Sorry, weird tangent. You're not here for sheaths, you're here for knives. I actually did an unboxing when I received all of these knives. Maybe we should roll a little bit of that. I have a feeling that this unboxing experience is gonna be decent, so we're gonna do that right now. Okay, nice, nice. So it comes in kind of like a cross-stitched, semi-shiny with the logo there in a box. It looks like this is one of those magnetic enclosured ones. Don't eat those. Cool. Okay, great. Really interesting profile. So that's that. Let's get this out of the way. All right, next up, the larger box here. Asian style edge. What does that mean? Tell me what that means. This is like a Costco unboxing here. Sure enough, it's gonna stab me in the hand. Extremely strong magnets. Okay, got it. I understand. So there's this little satisfying to peel off sticker on the back. Very similar branding on this side. It just says beautiful function, Cangshan there. And it's like a rose gold copper almost. In a second, but whoa. Look at the tang. It has like extra steel down here. Can you see how that tapers like that? You can see it even more exaggerated if you look here. Do you see how that's wider there? Ooh, this has serration. Almost looks like, oh, they stick together. Oh dear. And there is a little bit of oil on these. I'm all about it. Don't let it rust. Okay, final box here. Same vein as, ooh, fancy. Wow, look at that. So this comes in a wooden box. So you see the three very different presentations here. So you have the, you upgrade. I'm really glad I did it in this order. How does it look? Okay, nice. Pulling it out here. Ooh, okay, okay. This is nice. Can you hear it? Okay, unboxing over. Let's get back to the review. Let's talk about this one first. We will go most affordable to most expensive. Right off the bat, very interesting saya design here. I'm not 100% sure if I like this. They call this like a half sheath saya, where it is a magnet, but what I don't like about it is sometimes the knife can get like this, where it kind of, the tip starts to peek out a little bit, and I think that can be a little bit dangerous. I would rather have something that fully encapsulates the blade. So yeah, starting with their TC series, this is Swedish Sandvik 14C28N steel. It does say the Rockwell hardness rating of 59 plus or minus 2 right here on the blade. Triple riveted handle that they don't say on their site what it's made of, but if you've ever used a Wüsthof or even one of the Mercers that I've covered before here on the channel, it's that handle to blade junction, and I feel like this will be nothing new to you. Also, we need to talk about shapes with this knife. The blade profile itself has the spine go ever so slightly down into the tip, and the belly does a pretty consistent swoop up, and then the bolster isn't a traditional like abrupt stop. The handle into blade, the knife gets noticeably thicker heading into that handle, and then that results in a really sturdy grip on this. Overall, personally, when I look at this knife and I see how they market it with the full tang and the handle materials and the NSF stamp on the blade and the hardness of it where it's a little bit easier to sharpen, I think this actually fills a really good void in the market for someone who's like, listen, my work has crazy strict standards on what tools I can use, and they have to be completely sealed to prevent cross-contamination and bacteria growth. But I hate the boring look of a Victorinox. I want something that's a little bit thinner, has a gorgeous pin details, and comes with a carbonized wood saya that has magnets in it. And I like the angle of the base of the handle and how it kind of mirrors the bolster angle and makes it look sleek. Does that sound like you? Did we just jinx? In all seriousness, if that sounds like something that is attractive to you, I think you should probably get this knife. But I think how thick and chunky this blade is, partnered with the hardness of the steel, you can probably feel comfortable getting this and having it last you at least 2 to 5 years, especially if you were weighing this against something like a Dalstrong. You can get a set of 3 of these knives. This one, the serrated and the pairing, for less than 160 bucks right now. Speaking of pairing, I gotta say, this little pairing that's part of the set might be one of my new favorites. I just love the blade profile. The balance is great. Look at how long the handle is compared to the blade, so you can really choke up on it and still feel balanced when you're cleaning like tiny vegetables. I'm gonna be super sad to give this one away on Patreon, but I'm also super pumped because I know whoever wins this is gonna love reaching for this tiny pairing. Okay, so maybe the TC series isn't your jam. Maybe you want some more artistic details without giving up any performance. That's where this series comes in. This is their Z series. We've got some high carbon X7 steel. They say this is forged Damascus. I can definitely see some sandwiching happening on the blade here, which is fine. They're claiming 67 layers with a 60 Rockwell hardness, plus or minus 2, and then that leads to this very clean break going between the Damascus blade and the non-Damascus steel that makes its way into the full tang of the handle. I know I'm not supposed to do side-by-sides outside of the larger video, but just take a look at the difference here between the TC and the Z series. This one is much thinner, but it's only about 10% lighter, so you aren't losing any of that weighted feel in the hand, which I personally love. On their site, they make this handle look super shiny, but it actually has a pretty matte finish, which some of you might gravitate towards. Similar copper and brass colored pins in the center here, and the handle has all of these contours, which, especially if you have larger hands, might be a big draw. It's got that little swoop here down towards the bottom of the handle, which is nice, and the blade profile is only slightly curvier than the TC series. Hopefully the B-roll of the blade profile is doing it justice here. I almost think this looks like a dagger. Fun fact on this blade too, it's also got that NSF stamp of approval without the visible NSF stamp on the blade. So if you're a little bit more utilitarian in what you need, but you don't want to look utilitarian, I think this is a really good option. It's got that pinless magnetic walnut saya on it, and at the $97 price point, this could be a pretty valuable piece in your kit if you're wanting to invest in your first harder steel blade, going beyond maybe the knives you have right now that are at 56 to 57 on the Rockwell hardness rating, and you have to sharpen them a little bit more than you'd want to. You want something that lasts a little bit longer and still looks kind of dope. I think it's a good option. All right, let's talk about use on this. It was good overall. When it comes off the stone, for me, it's a dream to use. But because, like I said, it's got this interesting blade profile, if you're the type of person that has to prep during service, this could be a great option because it's thin enough where I feel comfortable carving protein with this. But then if you're like, shit, I'm about to run out of apples for marmalade, I need to dice more, you can comfortably do both with this. You don't have to go grab another knife from your bag. In order for me to recommend this though, as your full workhorse, I would need to make sure that this felt comfortable in your hands first, because with a chunky, beefy handle like this, I would want to make sure this wasn't going to cause you any fatigue. But again, I keep coming back to the price point. Dude, 97 bucks with the saya, what's not to like? All right, the third knife that the Cangshan guys sent out is part of their J series. So Japanese VG10 steel here. It's got that same claimed 67 layered Damascus pattern. It does have that distinguishable fusion between blade and bolster, which is not Damascus. And the only seam here, believe it or not, is where the wood and the metal meet, which is kind of sleek. So instead of going blade tapered into this thing that inserts into the D-shaped handle, the blade leads into the bolster and then that attaches to the handle, which is kind of interesting. Maybe you like that, maybe you think that sounds kind of stupid. Speaking of handle, this one is made from African blackwood. It feels good. The color is much darker on the set that I received than the one that they show on their site. It also doesn't 100% match the magnetic walnut saya, which is personally fine with me. I like a little wood variation, but some people really love when it's a clean match between the saya and the handle. We're rocking the same hardness as the Z series, so you have 60 plus or minus 2, but in my experience, this performs a little bit more consistently and lasts longer than the Z series, which might be the steel, yes, but also a little bit of my subconscious bias because I would use both knives for different things. And that's because personally, this is the profile I think of when I think 8-inch chef knife. And I would use this for 80% of my day when I was prepping. I personally wish that the handle was a little bit thicker. I'm only talking like millimeters thicker. And that's because yes, there is the tapered D style profile, but it's not that exaggerated feel where your hand actually grips the knife. So that makes it feel a little bit more like a wooden dowel in your hand rather than a proper knife handle if you do a pinch grip like I'm doing here. Price on this, including the other two knives as part of the set, is just shy of $300. If you're stepping into this price range, I don't think this knife is not gonna serve you well, but when you come to the table with that kind of budget, I think a lot of other very enticing doors open for you. And I wouldn't want to blindly sway you in this direction because frankly, this performs at a very baseline level. It's not gonna be the best knife you ever buy, but it's also not a toy. This definitely, it gets my recommendation, right? But, and I have to insert this asterisk, that's only if you look at this knife and you're instantly drawn to the wood handle and the Damascus VG10 steel and the way that this joins and the way that it looks and the blade profile. If all of that just is like, I love that, that's been what I've been looking for, you aren't gonna go wrong with this. But just for fun, I did a quick search on Korin and Chubo knives, and it's dangerously tempting what you can load up your cart with for $300. Overall, seeing Cangshan partner with chefs like Thomas Keller and getting a bunch of design awards this year is absolutely exciting. I think they make rock solid products. I've been using them personally even before they decided to send me stuff. I think they're also very aware of the current state of made in China, especially in the knife market, and they seem to really want to plant their flag in the ground as a company that does things the right way. Consistency-wise, I was much happier with what I received from these guys as opposed to Dalstrong. Shout out to everyone who's seen that video. It just seems like they're unapologetically Chinese, and that makes me happier than seeing someone pretend to be artisanal and hand-forged and steeped in Japanese tradition when it's really just coming off of a conveyor belt in China. Shout out to everyone that enters on this solo video because there are gonna be 3 winners here, so best of luck. All right, I saved this one because it's a very exciting one to talk about. This is the Sternsteiger Arminus. I'm not 100% sure how it's possible for them to sell a blade like this at the current price. This is on Kickstarter right now. They are fully funded, which means you can pretty much guarantee that if you slide in now, you're gonna get your knife at almost $200 off. And I think this knife on Kickstarter right now is less than 100 euros, which is insane after I tell you about the materials. So yes, this is the second Sternsteiger knife we've covered here on the channel. The last one was their super sleek, modern looking Achilles. I personally wasn't the biggest fan. This one is much more my speed though. It comes in a wood and felt lined box, you take it out and notice the gorgeous Damascus pattern that flows right into the bolster, as well as the end cap on the handle, with a couple of really beautiful red accents, and they've also got the 2 brass pins. It's actually a really beautiful touch, and I almost forgot, they're saying it's 440 layers on the Damascus, and it does say hand forged stamped here on the blade. Speaking of that Damascus, this is one of the 2 options available on whatever Damascus pattern you choose after you support their Kickstarter. They don't explicitly say what type of steel is being used here, but it is a high carbon, which is immediately evident if you cut anything with a pH that's gonna piss this knife off. And if you leave it wet for even a few minutes, you're gonna start to notice some discoloration. This knife requires your attention, but I think it will serve you well if you like a few of those details. The blade profile is fantastic for me. This was a joy to use, but what you need to be super mindful of is the thickness of the blade itself. It's very consistently beefy right up to the tip and then right up to the edge, and then it kind of cuts at this very harsh angle down towards the cutting edge. So it's kind of like straight, 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 cut, you know what I mean? As opposed to like straight and then it kind of tapers in and then the edge goes, which basically means you have to sharpen this differently, and it's not a nimble, sleek cutting tool. If you cube a lot of meat, if you break down lots of melons or squash or prep carrots for juicing, this is gonna be a fantastic piece in your kit. But if you wanna shave radishes or prep potato brunoise, this is gonna drive you crazy because it takes a lot of effort to get this to cut straight. It's just too thick. And so I wanted to put a pin in that because if you're working in a precise cuts kind of kitchen right now, I would hate to see you cop this and not be disappointed, but not realize what you got yourself into. The balance is fantastic. The feel in the hand with the Damascus bolster is great. The attention to detail is phenomenal. The grain in the wood is just gorgeous, and all for less than $300 retail. I would highly recommend jumping on their Kickstarter if you're viewing this in May of 2019. Otherwise, that link should lead you to their site, which you can learn more about this blade. I gotta say, I was a little skeptical when they reached out and wanted to send me a new experimental project of a knife. I was massively impressed by this one though, and it's gonna be hard to see it go, but I wanna make sure that this gets in one of your knife bags. If you made it this far in the video, chances are you're a gearhead just like me, and so I wanted to share a few things that someone like you might enjoy. First off, fan of the channel at Chef's Leather Works on Instagram made me these. These are custom sheaths for my Misono UX10. I literally DM'd him the measurements and a photo of the knife, and he was awesome enough to make 2. One, this one here has my initials on it, and it actually has a magnetic element, and so it's also red and black, which for those of you that have been on the channel for a while know is my favorite combo. I really like this one. And then he also made this one for me where he let me pick out the color of the leather as well as the color of this brass pin here. I think this one came out awesome, especially because we all know what it feels like to lose a Saya pin, and this one just always stays attached. So massive thanks. Links to his page are down low in the description. I also did a video recently sharing why I think everyone should sharpen their knife right out of the box while I was doing my research writing out this video. So if you haven't checked that out, please do that. Thank you so much for joining me for this Chef Knife Bonanza 2.0 video. Super secret news for folks like you. I actually received a bunch of fun petty and pairing and serrated knives as part of these shipments. A lot of them came as sets themselves, and I've decided I'm going to give them away to my supporters on Patreon. If you want to get access to not only just that giveaway, but also exclusive interviews from the Emulsion podcast, deleted clips, and behind the scenes, and even just have the satisfaction to know that you're supporting what I'm trying to do with this channel, please visit patreon.com/Justin Khanna. If you want a free way to enter any one of the big boy knives, the chef knives here, links to individual videos are linked down below. So if you do purchase from some of those links as well, I get an affiliate style kickback, which helps me at no extra cost to you. I sincerely hope you have a good one. Justin Khanna, thanks for watching.